Wait before I'm going to be asleep.
Let's call to order City of Port Richey Community Redevelopment Agency Board Meeting Tuesday, June 11th, 2024. I'd like to stand for the pledge.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Madam Clerk, you take roll, please.
Chairman John Eric Cooper.
Here.
Member Linda Rodriguez.
Here.
Member David Mueller.
Here.
Member Cherokee Sampson.
Here.
Member Robert Hubbard.
Here.
City Attorney Nancy Meyer.
Here.
City Manager Matthew Koppler.
Here. Okay, thank you. Next up is approve the board minutes. Is there any comments on either one of those? We can go ahead and just do them both at once if you want, unless there's somebody who wants to comment on either one. Are you good? So look for a motion for both minutes.
Motion to approve the board minutes from 4/23/2004 and 5/15/2024.
A motion second for discussion. All in favor, signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. So next up is comments from the general public. I don't have any sign-ups currently. Is there anybody like to speak? See no hands, I'll bring it back to council. Next up is comments from the city manager. Pass it to Matt Koppler for his. None? None today. Okay. Well, I will go on to comments from the board. I'll start to my left with Councilwoman Sampson. Member Sampson.
And no comments.
Member Rodriguez.
I just wanted to get an update. We had talked about for the resident grant, increasing that time, making that time that you can do multiple things to reach the 5,000.
Right.
Are we
working
on that?
If we could maybe have that conversation we talked about.
Oh, the funding.
The funding.
Oh, okay,
Sure.
sure. Absolutely. Yeah. Thank you. That's all.
Okay. Member Hubbard?
Nope.
And Member Mueller.
Yes, I do.
Can always count on you.
I know you can. Is there a possibility, and I know I'd like to connect the neighborhood that sits south part of the river to the rest of the area without having to go all the way around. Is there a way that we can get any kind of waiver that a golf cart can go across the bridge? I don't know. Is that
We can't get a waiver to go across 19. How would we get a waiver to go across the bridge?
not the bridge, the sidewalk on the bridge?
Yeah,
I understand.
I don't know.
couple things, and Chief, you can probably actually help with this. For a golf cart, LSV, no. LSVs cannot, licensed LSV golf carts cannot drive on sidewalks, correct? Okay. So the golf cart that's not LSV, I think the original thing was could, but I believe because that's a state highway that the DOT prohibits that.
I don't know.
You don't know.
I know people do it.
Well, I do too. And,
Do you know, Chief, if that's a fact, if it's legal or not legal?
no, I know people that do it. I said that people do it.
I got spanked for doing it.
Have you got a ticket book you can write him on right now?
I got an LSV. I can't go on the sidewalk.
If I'm not mistaken,
Here, turn your mic.
it has to be 8 foot wide in order for you to be able to cross. And I don't believe that section of the bridge is 8 foot.
It is.
Is it 8 foot wide?
Another one.
No, a lot of people, I don't. A lot of people live down there and come across to Cody River and use the sidewalk.
Okay.
Yeah, there's some DOT regs too alongside the highway. You can't do it.
Right.
I think even if it was wide enough.
I can look. I don't know off the top of my head. I'm happy to look if that's something I need to look into.
All right.
Yeah, if you just clarify if it's.
I was just wondering if, in trying to, bridge our community is divided by these geographical barriers. One, the river, and two, US 19. We're on a process to solve that problem, but we still have the other problem. They'd have to go around the long way.
Yeah.
I'll see if I can find out.
Yeah, I will say that an LSV, which is not encumbered on where you can cross, as long as it's 35-mile road or less, as I do. If I want to go to that side, I have to drive down Grand Boulevard, all the way down Newport Richey, cross at Maine, go down to Olsner, come down, and that's how you get there from that way.
Gotcha.
And I know Maine, obviously we're working on Grand for golf carts. Maine is also in the mix for golf carts. It's a long passage, but it is at least a passage at some point.
Right. Next thing, I know I mentioned before about contacting the Trust for Waterfront Park to see how we can maybe get a better working arrangement there so that we can utilize that park to maximize entertainment and really facilitate that as a place where people can gather, similar to Sims Park. I mean, we have that opportunity there. Maybe at some point in time we might want to put a beach out there. I don't know. But anyway,
Before you move on, is by consensus, because this is obviously something that been talked about. A lot of residents would like to see some more use of that park. Is it something that we direct staff to reach out to see if there's a renegotiation possibility with that agreement that we can get some?
So, do you mind if I?
Sure, no. Go ahead.
So with the Port Richey Chamber of Commerce, I contacted the state and talked to them in length about all kinds of stuff, and they didn't really seem. There's specific uses for that. It's in the documents that they have, and they seem to be very strict.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, it's a shot, but they seem to be very intent on keeping it the way that it is.
Right. There's one school of thought on that, obviously, and I just throw it out there just because it's a school of thought, right? It was given us under that restriction. We don't have to keep it, and by keeping it, and I'm not advocating for this. I'm just saying it's an avenue. If we say okay, we give it back to them per se, because we're not getting any tax revenue on it. We're maintaining it, and we can't really use it because it's so strict. So, there's always an option there. So, but I don't think it needs to come to that. I think the reality of Jim, comments. Sure.
So I've read the agreement. I don't think it's as restrictive as what we're saying, or what we think. I think the other piece is we have to have a plan. Because if we just go to the state and say, hey, we want to do something, they're going to say no. And because we haven't formulated what it is we want to do, and from their perspective, it could be something really bad in their mind, right? I think there are parameters that you're not going to negotiate. You just have to stay within parameters, and you just have to know how to ask the right question or ask the question in the right way to get what you want. I think there are opportunities to do more there. I mean, you can see what's there now, right? And to have a direction of what you can do, and you just have to do it in a way that piques their interest and achieves the goals of what they want to do back in whatever that agreement was consummated. So I think we just need to come up with what it is we want to do, and then try to figure out how to work with them to achieve it.
I think a lot of people do use the park, for what it's intended for the rural use of it. They just like to go hang out. They don't want to be in the big splash pad and so on and so forth. They have a dog park. We have a playground, and we have a pier that they can fish off of. And I see whenever I go up there are a lot of people up there utilizing the park. So organized things are different, but that park is utilized immensely.
Yeah, I think what they'll frown on is if we go say baseball fields, basketball courts, tennis courts. Yeah, you're not going to get that. But if you say, because again, what their vision is a passive, open space recreation area. So there's a lot of things that fit within that. Maybe an amphitheater.
That's my idea.
Maybe that fits into a passive recreation concept. If it's done the right way, if it's done with Florida-friendly, in the agreement, Florida-friendly construction methods, now all of a sudden you got interest from them to allow us to do something. So I think, again, we just need to come up with what are those ideas that we can sit down with them and say, here's what we're thinking, put them in a package that is going to be attractive to them, the goals that they want, and show how it improves our residents' lives, and show that we have funding to do it. I think they would be very open to that. But again, you just can't go in and say, hey, we want to build this large, baseball stadium. they're not gonna go.
Yeah, and when I had the discussion, I didn't mean anything like that. I meant like events and things. Like they're restrictive as far as events that we can hold there, like and things like that.
Yeah, they denied a car show, I think.
I was waiting for it.
For
Yeah, exactly.
oil, EPA,
Yeah,
they
yep.
needed EPA. Like they, when I say restrictive, I mean they need lots of paperwork, he's saying, and lots of reasons why it should be, and they can deny it based on EPA concerns because they're very big for the discussion about keeping that natural space.
He mentioned the amphitheater, and that was, as we talk about redeveloping waterfront and people, Guild Dog's closing, and that's kind of the main music venue. That's something we can look at is putting some kind of floating amphitheater right there at the end, and people could come there and watch a concert or whatever. It might be an idea.
So I have an idea about that. So Guild Dogs is closing. Whoever comes into that property obviously wants to demolish that, potentially. They might keep it. Who knows? We don't know what's going to happen there. But the idea that I got from a citizen was really great.
Move the boat.
Yep. To Waterfront Park and then contact the state because people love that boat and that it's a specific, unique thing to Guild Dogs. And I think that would be a real draw to Waterfront Park if the state, again, through maps work, would have.
Yeah. So I think my consensus sounds like we all agree, maybe reach out and talk to the state and see, and maybe we can come up with some
some
things we want to do to
ideas.
pass by them and see if it's something we can start to look at. One more.
Want to go back to the golf cart question? Florida statute 316.212 does have provisions for golf carts on sidewalks. There's quite a few conditions you have to jump through, hoops you have to jump through, one of which is getting approval from the Department of Transportation. So if it's something we're interested in, I don't know the specifics of the area, so I can't tell you if they all meet, but I can get with the city manager on a day that's not as late as it is, and we can talk about that.
I know a guy.
You know a guy?
Yeah.
Perfect.
The guy that's going to do the pressure washing that I contacted to get that squared away.
Yeah, so it might be handled the very same way they do the crossings.
I can find out. Yes, I'll follow up.
I think that's something we definitely should ask about, what the process is to get that approved.
316.212.
316.212.
Yep. Subsection 8. And it has about 4 or 5 different things, conditions you have to meet. One being the Department of
Okay.
Is there width restrictions in there at all?
Yeah, it does. Ms. Chief was right. It mentions 8 foot somewhere.
So if it's not 8 foot, we can't get it approved anyway.
Ordinance restricts golf carts to a maximum speed of 15 miles per hour and permits such use on sidewalks adjacent to state highways only if the sidewalks are at least 8 feet wide.
Yeah, so it's not an option, I don't think.
It's not 8 feet wide?
I don't believe so, but
Measure. Okay.
I mean, it's wider than a normal sidewalk.
I have no idea.
It's 4 feet.
Yeah, next time you go across there, you take a tape measure with you.
All right, next, come on, let's go, move on. Sorry.
Last but not least. Late. There is a lot that the city has a lien on. I believe it's directly north of the Naughty Oar. That would be an excellent property for us to buy with the CRA.
This is the demo of the blue building that was there at
The blue building, yes. And I believe that, and there again, I don't know. If we can foreclose, I mean, we wouldn't be the first position if there was a lien on it, but
Look into it, right?
But
You
the
never know
potential
too much.
is, I think that would be a dynamite property to acquire. One, it's got water access. Two, it could provide some relief for our existing lot over there. Three, we could potentially relocate the fire station there if that's something that is going to occur in the future. We also have the DDMA site that could be served in that capacity as well. If we're looking to add recreational space in the community, these things are available. When they come up, it behooves you to try to execute on them. Otherwise, something else will go. Granted, would be a nice piece of property to acquire. I don't know if we can do some looking.
It's not for sale currently, I don't believe, right?
Everything's for sale.
Well, right. There's also, so that we could also reach out, but there's eminent domain, I think, option as well on that, right?
Forcible sale. Yeah. if we express that the city might want an interest in that, to restore something back to the citizens, there again, we already have a lien on them. It might open up the door for communication. Just a thought.
Well, good point.
And the last item, I'm sorry. We had some discussion at one point in time about trying to get the zip code changed for just the city of Port Richey. Is there a way, or Matt, are you familiar with any way to go about doing that? You are familiar.
I've tried that before.
And have you been successful?
It was not successful.
But he tried.
Actually, right now, I think, is it St. Leo or St.
I was
Antonio?
gonna say, I happen to have heard St. Leo
Yeah,
attempted
St.
to
Leo's.
do so, and my understanding is they said no to changing the actual zip code, but there was some agreement about recognizing the name St. Leo instead of San Antonio on certain addresses, which sounded very difficult for the postal office to do to me. But I believe the request for the change in the actual zip code was denied.
And that's why my zip code is different than everybody else's.
Well, but that could change too.
Well, and they wouldn't do it. When they did the development, that's the thing. The mail trucks, it's how they route the stuff. That's how I got the different zip code was the mail trucks and the mail delivery, as Nancy just said.
I'm just asking a question.
I know, and we're just answering. You're fine.
Anything
And
else?
you may be the one they say yes to. We never know.
You never know.
Since you got a guy now.
Yeah, I know you know the guy, right? Anybody else? Or anything else?
I'm good. Thank
Anything
you.
else? Okay, moving on to board business. Item number 2, Inspire Placemaking Collective Inc. presentation, draft CR plan review. I'll pass it to Mr. Copley for introduction.
As the board is aware, we are in the process of updating our community redevelopment agency plan. We've contracted with Inspire Placemaking Collective to undertake that. Tonight, Laura Canary with Inspire Placemaking Collective, sticking out through a long period of time.
I was
Thank
going
you.
to say
Welcome.
thank you very much for being so patient.
And sorry to keep you.
Is here to present the work that they've done over the last several months to update the comprehensive plan for the community redevelopment.
You have our full attention.
Thank you. Good evening. Laura Canary with Inspire Placemaking. For the record, 2095 Fairlane Drive, Largo, Florida 33771.
What was that for you?
It's
frozen.
Was it frozen?
I don't know why.
It's tired.
Well, we get that going. I just did want to say thank you very much to Pam and Matt and the rest of the staff. It's been just a pleasure working with the team here. I was so sad when I heard Rachel was leaving because Rachel, especially from the financial standpoint, has been instrumental in the process. So thank you all. Really appreciate all your help. And of course, Tammy as well. Tammy and I used to be colleagues together back in Clearwater. And so when I knew that she was also working on concurrent planning efforts, we pulled her in as one of the stakeholder interviewees. So that was very helpful just because of her familiarity with the community and, the county as a whole. So that being said, I'll go through this as quickly as possible. I will not try and keep you here any longer. So as Matt said, Inspire Placemaking was selected to update the community redevelopment plan. And the community redevelopment plan, is this?
Is it on?
Let's see.
Yeah.
There we go.
Try going to the right.
Here we go. So tonight I'm just going to do a quick overview of what we were tasked with and talk about the scope very briefly, and then the timeline, and then some of the highlights of the plan update itself. So beginning with an overview of the process. The plan was written in 2002. It was actually, that was when the CRA was established, January 29th, 2002, and then it was restated in 2009. So with the 30-year operational time frame, we're basically planning out till 2032. Now, of course, you all do have the opportunity, should you decide to look for an operational time frame extension, because of the year that you were established, you would have the opportunity to potentially go out another 60 years with the CRA. But for this planning purpose, we just looked at the 8 years out. For our scope, of course, this is just like a look at the entire process. We begin with looking at existing conditions, and then we did hold a public open house / workshop, and then we really just got into the strategic framework and GOPs and some of the statutory requirements that we have to put in the plan update, which includes the capital projects and program lifts, TIF projections, a 5-year budget worksheet, and then again, some of the other comprehensive goals and objectives that are kind of mandatory per the statute. When we look at the timeline, so we're here in that June to July. This is just the first stop, and what we're doing tonight is not a formal action of any sort. We're just really bringing it to the CRA as kind of getting your eyes on it, hearing any feedback, and then from here, the next stop will be going to the local planning agency, which is the Planning and Zoning Board, and they'll be reviewing it for consistency with the comprehensive plan. So they'll come out of that meeting with a recommendation as far as whether or not it's consistent with the comprehensive plan. When we look at the contents of the plan itself, again, I said the existing conditions, that's kind of an X-ray look at the CRA, which we know is almost the entire geographical boundary of the city, excluding some areas. And then we look at, beyond kind of that X-ray vision, we look at demographics and socioeconomics. That's part of our tapestry segmentation. Again, just speaking in general terms, when we look at what we see socioeconomic-wise and demographic-wise, kind of looking at trends that we see in the community. And then we also talked about some of the things that were actually brought up tonight, kind of the roadway context classification with US 19 in particular, with it being a C4 urban general, and what can be done with that, and kind of the changes that are being made at the DOT at the state level to kind of help with some of these corridors and being more treated as a corridor, less like a highway. Next, we talked about, again, just reaffirming the agency's mission, and then we touched on the audit findings, and then how this plan update, really with the exception of 4 remaining findings, they're still partially addressed, but there's just really a couple kind of follow-up items. But with this plan update, we find that the CRA will be, in very good standing. Then we go into building internal capacity. As we know, a plan is great, but when it comes to the implementation of the plan, we don't want this plan to get set on the shelf, and so we talk a little bit about some suggestions and recommendations that the CRA may want to look at as far as the capacity internal to the organization, and being able to kind of, we know that it's a little bit unique here because you do have some overlap as far as with it being the boundary that it is. There's going to be different discussions that you maybe wouldn't have if it was a small geographical area. It would be very clear that CRA funding can be spent here, general funding can be spent here. But because there is kind of that gray area, it just makes it all the more important to really be able to have that internal capacity for the implementation phase. And then talking about some of those partnerships, some of them that were actually brought up in earlier discussions tonight with DOT. We also talked about Chamber of Commerce, the Pasco EDC. And then we conducted a SWOT analysis to kind of show what the opportunities were in the area. And then our most important and favorite part, the implementation. Again, because we really try and create plans that are tools for the CRA to use on a daily basis as part of the work program for the CRA. And so we've developed 3 strategic goals and a vision statement. The vision statement is the vision for the Port Richey CRA is to be a lively, well-connected waterfront community for visitors and residents committed to growing local businesses, retaining residents, and supportive inclusive redevelopment efforts that benefit all. So I love that there was, again, a lot of synergy with what we heard earlier with the feedback from the community, because that aligns very well, again, with what we're seeing in the plan update. And then we go into capital projects and a conceptual master plan. And those, again, are aligned with the strategic goals. And the strategic goals were a connected city, those are the icons that you see on the screen, an active waterfront, and a place for all, really building on that social capital. So the capital projects are intended to be flexible. So when you see them on the map, we don't get so specific as showing like an intersection and what improvements you will see there, because we really don't want to tie your hands that if there's an opportunity a little bit down the road that really makes more sense, or if you're looking at leveraging and layering funding and you need to kind of do something earlier or sooner than later, we want you to have that flexibility, but we also know that if it's not in the plan, you shouldn't be doing it. So we try and, make it not so broad as you don't know what's being discussed, but we also, it's very intentional to have that flexibility within the framework of the master plan. And then we go into the 5-year budget worksheet. Again, budget worksheet. This does not replace the annual budget. It's just meant to be a guide. And we use the current fiscal year 23-24 numbers to plug those in and kind of project out from there. And then we look at the TIF projections. For that one, we look at the actual valuations for the properties in the CRA for fiscal year 23. And then we do a conservative 2.5% annual valuation increase. Obviously, we've seen many years you might see a 7% increase, or maybe you don't see an increase at all. So a rule of thumb is really just to use the 2.5%, but we're very mindful that, especially with all the exciting stuff that's happening, in particular in the waterfront district, that the 2.5 will probably hopefully be well exceeded moving forward. And then we have a phased implementation schedule, which really, again, just looks at those capital improvement projects and programming. Again, some of them aren't really brick and mortar projects. They're more of a programming aspect for the CRA. So those are captured in that long-term implementation schedule for a 7.5 year. And then comprehensive GOPs. And those are really, again, kind of a combination of statutory requirements plus just to really give the CRA team kind of a roadmap that if someone new maybe was to come in that maybe wasn't as familiar with the separation of the CRA and the city funds, that they would be able to kind of look at that as a guide and be able to really understand what the CRA should be paying for and shouldn't be paying for, and what they should be focusing on and what they shouldn't be focusing on. And then, of course, this is something new that's just came out of this year, performance metrics. CRAs have always been required to do an annual report, but now they're wanting just a little bit more information, and that's really coming from the state level. And so FRA, the Florida Redevelopment Association, has came out with a set of suggested performance metrics so that, again, consistently across the board, CRAs are kind of looking at the same thing. And you can imagine that that's like affordable housing, transportation, and mobility. So that's where why those performance metrics are in there. And with that, I'll be happy to answer any questions or field any comments that you have. Thank you very much.
Thank you for coming. Any questions?
Sorry.
Yes. I absolutely loved reading through the entire plan, and I really hope that everybody had a chance to, because it's very in depth. And I think that, we have something good here that we can move forward with.
Thank you.
What else? Thank you very much for coming.
Thank you for all your hard work, and thank you for staying all this time.
Thank you very much.
Very late, and we appreciate it.
And we only got 2 more agenda items if you'd like to stay longer. Might as well, right? Okay. We don't need anything for that, right? It's just next up, item number 3, allocate funds from the commercial grant program to the residential grant program. Pass it to Mr. Cobb for introduction.
Yeah, so long story short, we are almost at the end of the $50,000 that council allotted for the residential properties grant. And we haven't started the commercial properties grant program yet. The staff will begin working on putting that together. What we're recommending is that we allot 30 of the $50,000 from the commercial properties to go towards residential properties and keep that ball rolling for residential or residents within the CRA to be using that. The reality is we probably are not going to get the commercial one completed probably until closer to the end of the year, so there may not be any money used towards that program this year. But we think right now $30,000 would be a good seed to keep that program growing. In relation to that, I think if you allow that to happen, you then also extend it down to the 1 year, I believe, is what we were looking at. We were moving.
It wasn't 1 year, it was,
Removing
it was
total.
2, it was 2 years, but what we were doing was it was $5,000 per household, but some people can't afford the $5,000 to match it right away, but they can do a project here for $1,000, then they can do another project in 6 months for $1,000, and the way it's written, they get the 1,000 and that's it for 2 years. Not everybody can afford, and the point is to reduce blight, and those people, unfortunately, sometimes they don't have the money to do everything all at once. So I was suggesting that we do the $5,000 in a 2-year period, and then they can do their projects as they go along to get reimbursed that way.
So I have a question on the projects. If you, and I understand what you're saying, I do my roof, I get this. Is it in our current grant? Maybe it's this question for you. If I come to you and I have $5,000 for the project, I want to do my landscaping, my roof, and this. You can do multiple projects all the same setting, right? Or is it just one project at a time?
Yes, you can do any project that qualifies within the 2-year period, but you can't exceed $5,000. That's the most we'll reimburse you. So far this go around, everything that has come in, well, the majority of it has been for roofs, which has exceeded the $5,000. Right. So these people have used up the entire $5,000. Everybody that's come in so far.
So for instance, if you need to get gutters, it's not $5,000. You maybe
Let's say it's $1,000.
maybe the grant is only $1,000. So you do the gutters this time, and in 9 months you're able to afford a storm door that's falling off, which is not $1,000. You know, it's like $500.
Right.
You can't get that at this point because you get it one time in the 2 years. Correct, Pam?
No, you can use up to $5,000 within the 2 years.
So you can apply multiple times.
Sure, as long as it doesn't.
Well, that's not what it said in the thing, so that's why I wanted to.
No, when you.
Okay.
Your question was when you did your grant. That at that point in time, the max on that was $1,000.
Right.
Okay, and the rule is that you can only come in every 2 years. So if you come in at the end in September of this year and you use up the whole $5,000 that's left,
right, you're done for 2 years.
You're done for 2 years from that date that you're reimbursed.
But you can file them separate times during it. You don't have to do it all at once. So you can have January do
so
1,000.
somebody can apply 5 times, $1,000 each time.
Yeah, I don't see why not. It
Assuming
doesn't
there's
say that
funds.
you can't.
Right.
Well, yeah, of course. Yes, that I know. I understand that.
So it sounds like your issue is okay.
All right. I just want to make sure that people.
Wait,
Yeah.
just so we're clear. So right now, if someone comes in and says, "I want to replace my front door," they have, and it's only going to be $1,000 rate. We keep that $4,000 extra open and allotted for them.
No.
Okay.
No.
Okay. But if they come in and say, "I want to replace my door, I want to replace 3 windows," and it's going to be $5,000, they have 2 years to expend that $5,000.
Yes. It would, as long as they have all of the documentation, it's permitted, and it meets the requirements. The project meets the requirements.
And I think that's the difference in this is that you have to come, as it is written today, you have to come in with a complete project that eats up the total amount of money that's available to you.
Okay.
It can't be,
So that's why I have a problem.
Yes.
That's where I have a problem.
Right.
Because you might not know that you're going to have the money in 9 months to be able to do the front door because you just did the gutters.
Your question is when you go for a project, if it's under $5,000, you lock yourself in at whatever it is. So if you do a $1,000 project, that's all you get. You can't come back for your other $4,000 because you didn't do it at the same time.
You can come back within that time frame, but if there's no money there.
Well, if there's money there.
No, we're not talking about that. There's plenty of money. The make believe there's unlimited funds. I know there's not, but there's money there. But you know what I'm saying. I don't want to put that caveat in there.
Okay.
But what Matt said is that's what I was saying.
Can we pull up the CRA grant thing?
We should just let me read it. I don't know what it says.
Okay,
I've
can you read it and look into that for
I'd be
me?
happy to. I've
And
never
Matt
seen
knows
it.
what I'm talking about.
It's
You
in
understand
the-
what I'm saying? So
it's
he
in
can
the
explain it to you.
application.
I don't think the application says that. That's what the issue is. We'd have to change the application guidelines to allow that to happen.
Because nobody's gonna come in and with gutters and a front door and windows, and because you have to have 3 bids for each project. Those bids aren't going to be, that you're gonna use in 9 months, are not gonna be honored. The construction people, are not gonna honor those. So it's a moot point to bring 3 bids when you're not gonna use it for 9 months.
So essentially what you're saying is you want to amend what the criteria is so that an individual can be allocated up to $5,000 over a 2-year period,
Correct.
not necessarily
At
all
one time.
on the same project,
Correct.
which makes total sense.
Or at the same time.
Right.
So
Assuming, and I'm just going to give a real simple example, the $1,000 door. I
Right.
go in,
I just
get
said
that. I come back 6 months later and I want to do the windows.
I just said that.
So
So
you
in
want,
that
you
scenario,
want to set up
those
like
are
a bank
two.
account for this?
Not a
person?
bank account. What happens if you don't use it? But if
No.
I come to you in 2 years, in 6 months, and say, now I want to do gutters, you go, oh, you only used 1,000. Yes, so there's 4,000 in there.
Right.
If there's no money, then you can't use it. It's not a bank account.
Right.
But if there's money available, then yes, I should be able to use it.
So let's do it. Sound like consensus wise.
So let Nancy look at it. Come back to
Yeah,
us.
why
and we're
don't
good.
what I don't even know if we need to do that. Why don't we just take care of it right now?
Okay.
Yeah.
If it's not written that way, or we
Is
consensus
that
to
the-
change it.
That's the intent.
Are you okay with that, Bob?
Yeah.
Allowing $5,000 per resident for 2 years, no matter if they do it
Makes
5
sense.
times or 1 time. It's
Yes,
they get a total of $5,000 use if the money's available.
So let me just clarify.
Matt's doing
Oh,
this.
he's
He
got it.
has something to
Let
say.
me just say the problem though is that you could have day one, if we do $50,000, day one, 10 people come in
Mhm.
and say, I want to do something, but I don't know what it is I want to
Well,
do.
no, not that.
No,
No,
It's
they got to
it's-
come in and
you-
apply.
You just if you get a grant for $1,000 for your door, you can't say, hey, reserve
right.
$4,000
I agree.
because I might
Yes.
do something later on.
That's
That's
right.
No, that's exactly what you're saying.
No, that's what
No.
I'm saying.
No.
If that money's available, now if they want
It's
to
a
come
whole
back,
other grant process. You don't. Actually, I'm sorry, Eric.
No,
Okay, what did they say?
saying that you can come in on a project basis up to $5,000, but we're not allocating money and setting aside.
right?
No,
It
I'm
says
saying
if there's money available, you can use up to $5,000 over 2 years. We're not allocating money, but you can do it on a project basis, per project.
So what
basis.
happens if you have 3 different projects over 2 years that you don't know about?
Well, you're going to
We're
know.
saying you can do that.
Yeah, you would.
Yeah.
So here's if I could,
If the
if I could.
money's there, it's still first come, first
Yeah.
served. That way we're not
Right.
allocating costs to somebody that's not gonna use it.
That's understood.
You know?
Okay, let me.
This is real simple.
If
Wait,
I could, well, I run the meeting here. Can I?
Go
can I-
ahead, you
can
run
I-
the meeting. You
you need to use that gavel.
So to avoid all confusion, all right, when we say allocate $5,000 per resident, it's not, they come in and they get a blank check for $5,000 using it. So we allow a certain amount of money. If you come in on day one and ask for $1,000 door and that's approved, you get $1,000 reimbursed for that door. People are continuing to access that, right?
Mm-hmm.
And then after you do your door in January, you come back in April and decide, I'm going to do my windows now. You can apply it. If there's money left, you could possibly get up to $4,000 because you haven't used but $1,000.
Correct.
But it's still on a case-by-case project.
You still have to meet all the criteria. You still have to have the 3
And we
bids.
still
You
have to have
still have
money.
to fill out the application separately. It's a whole separate thing.
So now you have this rolling 2-year window, right? Let's say I had 3 projects. Project 1, I do for 1,000. Project 2, I do for 3,000. And it's 9 months in.
You got $1,000 left that you could use if you wanted to.
Yes.
And
Or-
it's available.
If it's
Right.
available.
If it's available.
That goes us.
Yeah, with
That
we
goes
know
without
that. We know that.
But the essential is, at some point in time, where are you going to break that individual off? Are you going to do a rolling 2-year? Because,
Yeah, it'll be within
Programming.
within the project.
well, but if
Year.
that last
Just a
project that I put, it's a year in, so I would
No,
spend that wouldn't roll.
No,
Where do you gonna
January
define-
1st of 2025, it starts, you put your thing in, it gets approved.
On the first project is going to be the start date for the.
On January 1st of 27.
It's October 1st. That fiscal year.
Well, no, there's no date on it. It's just.
Yes, no, so if
So
I
I'm
could.
just saying, a calendar year or 2 years is what it is. If I start
It's not a
January,
calendar
she
year,
starts.
It's from October 1st to September 30th. That's the
fiscal
program year. So if we start it this October 1st, this is
Okay.
in the future. So we start October 1st and you come in January, you've got until September 30th of the following year.
Correct. Okay.
So you don't get
Okay.
2 years from the time you got it.
That's fine. That's fine.
So it does say that in the handbook.
It doesn't.
That's what I thought.
Applications are accepted on a rolling basis and
That's what I thought.
reviewed, approved, and the order received. The limited amount of funding is available each fiscal year, October 1st through September 30th.
And that's what I thought because I was told that I could apply it like June or something like that because
So
of the time frame.
So read that again. So that it talks about the program year, but
Applications are accepted on a rolling basis and reviewed and approved in order received. A limited amount of funding is available each fiscal year, October 1st through September 30th. Funds will be dispersed on a first-come, first-served basis each fiscal year until all available funding has been allocated.
right, but that doesn't say anything about January, December, a rolling basis. It just says
I just picked the
September
date.
30th.
right.
So if I start 1 month and 6 months later she starts, my 2 years starts when I started, and my 2 years starts when I started, and then 6 months later her 2 years started when she started on her house.
Right. So if somebody started in September, they couldn't apply again for 2 years.
Correct.
Unless, back to your theory there, of only spending 1,000, maybe that's the trigger point that they have within that 2-year period. That's the first project starts the clock rolling for that 2-year window.
I would say it's where the grant date is.
Well, but you're going to have multiple grant dates,
Well, and there's also a
multiple
2-year
projects,
rule.
right?
Exactly.
There's what?
There's also a 2-year rule.
Right.
Once a grantee has received their $5,000 maximum, they will be eligible to apply for a new grant 2 years from the date of their last reimbursement check,
Oh.
providing
so
the
that is
program is still operating and funds are available.
So in 10
So
years,
the-
they
So
can
there's no
also
tie to the
apply.
actual program year. It's just basically your 2-year time frame. Whenever you start, you've got 2 years to spend
But
5,000.
to that
Or
end,
whatever
How this
if you got 3 projects and you start one on October 1st and you start the last one on September 1st of the following year, that's going to trigger the 2-year window from that last reimbursement. So somebody's going to have to do some math to track
Okay,
these
how many
things.
grants did we? How many grants did we?
She's got 10.
How many have we? I'm too tired to think of the word. Given, paid out in the past
Allocated.
6 months. Thank you.
probably at least 10.
Oh, okay. So that's a much larger amount than we have in the past.
Yes, and we're giving out a lot larger amount too.
Well, that's good. I'm glad it's
Yeah.
being used. That's what it's
Right.
there for.
And we're also giving it
it's
to
being
anybody
used.
with it, no matter what they make. So
It's
gazillionaire
it's
can
not
get
means
$5,000.
tested, right? Hey, sign me up.
So in 10 years, you could use $50,000.
Right. So it sounds like based on what we have in there that you get $5,000. Once you get to that $5,000 mark, you can't do anything for 2 years past that last reimbursement check.
Is that everybody's understanding? That's what I kind of interpret that.
I would just suggest that we let Nancy take a look at it just to be clear and be sure that we're
Okay,
doing our due
that's fine.
diligence,
Sure.
and that we don't make a decision here without the proper research and
Right.
viewing
Yeah, I'll
of the
clarify.
That's fine.
document
Yeah.
that we can.
Perfect. Thank you.
Email it to me.
And then if you can bring back recommendations on
Absolutely.
what it is, and then we can propose
Perfect.
changes
That'd
at
be
that
great.
point.
Perfect. Thank you. I appreciate you looking into that. Thank you.
But I think this was also focused on moving
Yeah,
forward.
Matt had a
So
question.
Right. So yeah, question.
Oh, no, I said Matt still had a question that's not been answered though. Did you get the
You have a
money?
question?
You got your money?
No questions.
No,
So-
like,
Well, I mean,
Agenda.
Yeah,
that's-
so
His question.
I'm
That's
yeah,
my
I'll get that. So now we've got that ironed out.
I'm trying to help.
We need a probably a motion to allocate the additional 30,000 from the commercial over to the residential to keep that program alive.
Motion to allocate funds from the commercial grant program to the residential grant program in the amount of $30,000.
Second.
Have a motion second for discussion.
Yes. Do we know when the commercial grant program will be available?
I don't have a date yet.
Okay.
But there's 20 grand in there when it comes online for now. Anyone public like to comment? Seeing none, bring it back. There was no discussion further, right?
No.
Okay, I put the vote. All in favor, signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. Next up, item number 4, approval of resolution number 24-13, parking lot lease agreement with Whiskey Joe's Bar and Grill. I'll pass that to Ms. Meyer for her reading.
CRA resolution number 2413, a resolution of the Community Redevelopment Agency of the City of Port Richey approving Whiskey Joe's Bar and Grill, Port Richey Incorporated parking lot lease, granting authority to the city manager to execute the lease, providing for severability and providing for an effective date.
I have a question on the lease. In section, this is page 153 and 154. So section 2, lease terms, item B on page 154. Lease will be renewed until the landlord or tenant provide 30 days written notice pursuant to the requirements section 22 of the party's intent to terminate lease. And if you roll down to the same page, 154, section 4, recapture, it is agreed that the landlord retains and reserves the right to recapture the premises for a municipal purpose upon 90 days written notice to the tenant and without payment of compensation on account. So why is that different?
Because Matt and I talked about it, and that's what we decided. I don't remember our full conversation, but their agreement, their proposal, which you accepted, was month to month, right? So that's why that's 30 days. 4 is more of a your intent. You could do 30 and say we're not going to do this anymore. But 4 is trying to capture, like, you're letting them know with plenty of time for them to make other provisions for what they're using it for. Good, like a good, you're being a good landlord. We're going to give you
Business friendly.
Yeah, business friends. We're going to give you 90 days because we're letting you know now we're going to now develop this property.
Right.
We're not just going to not renew the lease. We're going to give you time, but this gives that parameter. So don't say I'm going to give you 60 days. I'm just trying.
No, I get it. And
sense.
obviously we would give them a year if we do it. We're always going to do something.
Right.
My only concern is that, let's say that we need to terminate within 30 days because
you still can.
Well, we still can, but with this section 4 in there, it sounds like if we do, it's contradictory to the 30. So why do we have it in there? Doesn't make any
Lease
sense.
terms and recapture are two different kind of entities. So termination of the lease and a recapture, and it's part of the business. Like they just said, it's a part of being in good faith. So the business.
I get that. They'll say that we need that in 30 days, and we say we're because when we recapture for municipal purpose, that really is anything. So if we want to, let's say we're going to put a trolley stop in there, and we want to do it, and we want to get shovels in the ground in 30 days. Again, it's hypothetical, but by this, as because we're recapturing from this person, we got to give them 90 days. So we got to wait 90 days before we can actually end it, which is contrary to the. I mean, we do terminate 30 days for any reason. This doesn't make sense. I know it's different.
The intent of the 30 days, obviously from our perspective, usually is you're not paying, you're not doing the things we expected you to do. We're terminating the lease, right? The recapture is a different intent of we now know what we're going to do with this. We're letting you have time to remedy whatever you need to do, so you have you're not left out in the cold.
Yeah, and that's exactly my point. If we need to recapture it, we're stuck with it for 90 days if they're paying and everything's good.
Right, but it can be changed.
We change it to 30.
We could change it to 30, but it will have to go back to their side. So this will be delayed.
They're okay with this the way it is.
They
And if you guys are okay with 90, I'm okay with 90. It just does logic saying for 3 months if we need it for some faster reason.
It can be removed. The red comments you see are their comments. The red additions are their comments. So they have seen this, and I'm sure. I mean, I can assume they wouldn't care if it was changed to 30 because we also can terminate with 30 days notice. But completely up to you guys.
I'm okay. I just bringing it to your attention. I just thought it was kind of strange.
I got a quick question. were we going to make this effective immediately, or and how fast do they want to execute on it?
Yesterday.
That I don't know. I've not spoken to the other side, but my understanding is they're ready to use it. So
Yesterday.
yeah.
Last.
So I make a motion that we move forward and approve this language.
Second.
We're going to approve the resolution, which lets Mr. Koppler sign at least, if that's what you'd
Oh,
like
is
to
that
do.
what we need to
That's what
approve?
you need to do. Yes.
So a motion and a second. Was the motion okay?
I make a motion that
Restate it.
restate it to allow Matthew Koppler to effectively execute this lease on the city's behalf.
What I think we need a motion to approve the
Yeah,
resolution.
I think the easiest way to do it is
Just-
do a motion to approve resolution, CRA resolution number 24-13.
All right, let's do that.
Let Nancy make the motion.
Motion to approve resolution number
You could just say so moved, and that would
24-13.
take care of it.
You have it.
Motion
it.
seconded.
I
You got it.
Oh, did Dylan do it?
Linda.
That's motion second for discussion. Anyone public got comment? So you don't have to bring it back. All in favor, signify by saying aye. Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Next up, and that was it. So old business is what's on next. Any discussion on old business?
To adjourn, please.
Well, I'll hear that in just a second. Is anybody for old business?
Is there any opportunity to look at the shade sales with any of the CRA money, since we haven't been able to acquire one through a grant?
So CRA money has to be spent specifically for
Blight.
the slum and blight per what your plan allows for. Your current plan would probably not
Park
allow
improvements?
for,
Park improvements?
I could look at it, but I don't believe, I think the main thing in the current plan is parking.
Is
And that's
parking-
why the lease
Okay.
worked.
With the new
yeah.
plan.
The new plan might capture that.
Yeah, we can do
So
it.
hold that thought.
Anything else on old business?
Motion to close or adjourn.
Motion adjourned.
Second.
Motion second. All in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye.